Making money. On a bright May afternoon in 2007, a German artist and printmaker named Hans-Jürgen Poole took a seat at an outdoor cafe directly opposite the colossal facade of the Cologne Cathedral. He ordered an espresso, a slice of plum cake, lit a Lucky Strike, and watched for the buyer. She was due any minute. Poole, a lanky 65-year-old, had sold plenty of artwork over the years, but this batch was altogether different. He needed to be patient. On the other side of a low brick wall surrounding the cafe, he finally spotted her. Tall, blonde, and trim, Suzanne Falkenthal looked about 30. As was the case during their previous meetings, she wore practical shoes, an unremarkable blouse and pair of pants, and little makeup. Poole thought her plain look was something of a contradiction for a businesswoman who drove a black BMW convertible, but no matter. They greeted each other with a kiss on each cheek. Over the past few months, they had met several times at Poole's studio. Falkenthal had said she was an events manager from Lithuania and that she did a lot of work for Russian clients. Her German was flawless. At one point, she mentioned to Poole that fake US $100 bills were sometimes a problem at exclusive events organized by her firm. He sympathized and mentioned a couple of tricks for detecting forgeries. It's easy to see and feel if it's fake or not, he told her. A few weeks later, Falkenthal told Poole that she had a high-end party coming up in August. Would he be interested in printing the 300 tickets for it, plus an extra 50 that she could sell on the side? Poole said yes. She's obviously not the Pope, he thought. It was then that he decided to take his chances with Falkenthal. He knew from experience that there were risks, that she might be bait. But he tended to trust people. So Poole showed her a counterfeit $100 bill that he had made and asked that she show it to one of her Russian contacts. Falkenthal called a few weeks later. Her contact was impressed with the sample and interested in a purchase. They started with a test batch of $250,000, which was bought for 22,000 euros. The price was typical for forgeries, which sell at a steep discount because so much of the risk is borne by the buyer. Poole told her, "If the contact is satisfied with this first installment, we should talk." 10 days later, she got back to him. The man was happy with the fakes and wanted more. How about 6.5 million? Seated at the cafe across from the cathedral that afternoon, Poole handed Falkenthal a note with a price for this new order, 533,000 euros. She agreed. They decided to make the handoff the next day at his studio. Falkenthal added that she would bring her own boxes. After all, $6.5 million in cash weighs about 150 pounds. Poole's counterfeiting career had begun a decade earlier at Cologne's Café Cento. Together with other members of what he thought of as his gang, he would spend afternoons at the cafe, eating pastries, smoking, and talking about the good old days of fast cars, drugs, music, girls, and the energy they once possessed to keep up with it all. They referred to one another with mobster-like nicknames, the Belgian, the Smiler, the Traveler, and Mr. Special. Known as the Dove, Poole occupied a strange position within this milieu of part-time crooks and schemers. He was like them, in that law-abiding people tended to bore him, and the idea of settling down with a family was of zero interest. But he was an artist and tinkerer, not a goon. One of his favorite pastimes was visiting Cologne's Ludwig Museum to visit its stellar collection of works by pop art masters like Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, and Andy Warhol. Poole is tall with hazel eyes, a prominent nose, and a scar overriding much of his right eyebrow. He first began painting when he was 10, but fell in love with silkscreen printing when he first saw Warhol. I was like, wow, so easy, but so different. On a technical level, however, he found the work lacking. When he saw Warhol's flowers, for example, he thought, Give me 4 days and I could do that. Better even. I wouldn't use so much pink. Before long, he was producing Warhol imitations, and by the early 80s, he was making something of a name for himself, with prints that closely mimicked Warhol's Cologne Cathedral, flowers, Mao, and other images. A German newspaper once dubbed him the Warhol of Cologne. The prints weren't counterfeits. Poole signed his own name and felt that forging another artist's signature was just wrong. But long-term financial security eluded Poole. He liked to party and seemed constitutionally unable to plan past the following Saturday. By the late 90s, as his money troubles mounted, he was suddenly presented with a chance to fix things. An associate of the Cafecento gang had arranged a deal, something to do with Saudi businessmen and a Swiss financier. Poole didn't know the specifics and didn't much care. What mattered was the promise of nearly $100,000 in exchange for printing $5 million in fake US currency. I could really be free again to do whatever I want, like finally open a gallery. So in 1998, Poole took out a loan to buy a used offset printing machine. Then he bought huge sheets of high-quality paper and began mixing inks for what would turn out to be his warm-up run at the $100 bill. Most counterfeits are produced on desktop laser printers and can't buy much of anything before they're spotted and pulled from circulation. But with his technical know-how and exacting craftsmanship, Poole placed himself among a rarefied class of counterfeiters who can make truly high-quality fakes. Unfortunately for Poole, the deal with the Saudis turned out to be a sting, and in 1999, he and a few others were arrested. Poole was convicted of making counterfeit money, but released early on probation when a judge concluded that the police may have been overzealous in their tactics. After that, Poole tried to get back to the simpler and safer life of a graphic printer. But one aspect of the bust stuck in his head. An expert witness from Germany's central bank had extolled the quality of Poole's forgeries. There was also something poetic, he thought, about demonstrating to the world that those coveted, almost sacred US dollars are nothing more than intricate images mass-produced on fancy paper. In a way, that point of view itself was borrowed from Warhol, who once wrote that making money is art, and working is art, and good business is the best art. 7 years after Poole's first arrest, a sorter at a garbage center in Cologne saw something odd. A torn plastic bag, overflowing with shredded paper, bearing the unmistakable pale green coloring of US currency. Then he found 6 others just like it. When he first saw the mountain of shredded paper, Federal Criminal Police investigator Martin Becker wasn't worried that people in his country might be undermining faith in the currency that also happens to be the backbone of the international monetary system. He thought, oh God, this is going to be a ton of work. The rule of thumb with counterfeiting, Becker says, is that the waste paper represents about 10% of the volume of fake money in production. Based on that formula, Poole could have forged 30, possibly even $40 million, making him perhaps the most prolific individual counterfeiter in the history of money. Now all Becker had to do was catch him. Thank you.
David Wolman. You've been listening to a snippet of Livewire, the radio variety show that's like a chew toy for your brain. For more information about the show or to download our podcast, visit livewireradio.org.